today is...
It's Halloween.
Halloween.
Woo! We're recording on Halloween. Woo! And yeah, Jeff gives out full-size candy bars. Now, if I had been a kid coming to this store, man, I'd come more than once.
Well, we told the kids earlier to go tell all your friends so we'd get all the friends because I bought...
Full-size, not just tiny little...
No. I bought 90 candy bars and had them here a week and a half ago, and I put some in a bowl, and all of a sudden... we realized we weren't going to have enough candy bars because all the guys were coming up there eating the candy bars. So I had to buy more.
A little too tempting.
So hopefully tonight most of the candy bars will go away. But I don't know because but Sean did say that he thinks he's sick. He's the one.
He's eaten too many.
He's the one who's been up there like with the trick or treaters while we've been down here podcasting.
I actually had a whole thing of Reese's peanut butter cups.
Wait, no.
I don't even... You had a bite. Okay. I don't eat candy. I don't eat candy bars. I don't eat Reese's peanut butter cups. Maybe a bite of one, but I ate the whole thing except for giving you like 2 bites.
I think that came from a 5-day water fast. See, that's what happens.
Oh, my
Control,
gosh.
sister.
Too much.
You're listening to Fit and Hippie with Dori and Lori. The show is about the show that covers the show that gets into
Exactly. We're going to talk today about weird animal stories.
Yeah,
right.
Which is
like
funny, and it comes about because I was reading this article online about this woman. I think it was at the New York Zoo or something. That she goes into the actual lion's, like, habitat.
Den?
The lion's habitat.
Holy crap.
She crawls underneath, or however she gets in there. She goes into the habitat, and she's calling out to the lions. Now, there's a big chasm between the lions and her. So there's a great big gully or whatever.
God.
And the lions are getting annoyed. They're getting irritated. They're starting to roar at her. And she's out there just hollering, and people are watching this.
Is she
happen.
waving her arms and stuff? Did she think she was like the lion whisperer?
I don't know, but people are kind of freaking out with their kids at the zoo, watching this woman go into the exhibit and start hollering at the lions. What the heck? What are people thinking? That these are wild animals. And this is what led me, Dori and I started talking about what is going on in people's heads. Even our own heads, to be honest. That we would think that wild animals are okay. Well, I had a friend that told me a story about this couple that actually took their child, like a baby. Now, I'm from South Dakota, so there's a lot of buffalo in South Dakota. As a matter of fact, in the Black Hills and in Custer State Park and all that, there's a lot of buffalo. So people come across these buffalo, and they're enthralled with the buffalo, and they're so cool, and they seem so gentle.
They do.
Well,
docile.
They went to put their baby on this back of this buffalo to take a picture. Their baby.
No!
And my friend goes up to him and is like, that is not a good idea. This is a wild animal. Do not put your baby on this buffalo.
They were close enough to the buffalo to try to put the baby?
Yeah.
There was no fence?
And they were going to take a picture because they thought it was very cool if the buffalo were there. Let's put the baby on the buffalo. Jeez. I don't even know what crosses a person's mind to think that's okay. And he didn't know what crossed that person's mind to think that was okay. So he stepped in and said, please do not put your baby on that buffalo. This is a wild animal. Why in the world would somebody think that it was okay to put their baby on the back of a buffalo? A wild freaking animal. So we got to talking about our experiences with animals. Dori, being here in Utah and in Alaska, has had some interesting encounters with wild animals.
That's some cray-cray
I've had my
stuff.
own couple, interesting encounters with wild animals. But I'm going to let Dori kind of give a story that she's had.
Oh, jeez. Where do I start?
This is an interesting subject.
Well, the first thing I started thinking about before I actually start talking about some of the crazy things that I've seen in tourism and people coming out on tour, but I remember being out on tour and you're driving down the road, and depending on the time of year in Alaska and Canada, like most of the time you're going to see a bear, you're going to see moose, you're going to see caribou, you're going to see things out on the road,
well,
right?
and if you live in a city, that's not normal
No,
for you.
it's not normal. Yeah. And you get people from all over the world actually on these tours. And I do remember I had this one lady, as we're driving, she's like, so when do they put the wild animals out? Like when do they let the animals out? Like,
oh my God.
So as if she thinks that like we're at the zoo and now we're going to let the animals come out and you get to like get out and take pictures of them. It's like, yeah, that doesn't happen. I just thought, wow. I'm not going to say what part of the country she was from because.
Oh my God.
But that being said, in Alaska, I got to see bears on a daily basis.
Yeah,
all the time.
That would be kind of scary.
And caribou and moose, and it was fantastic. And I remember this one time. So we, I'm driving tours between Skagway and Canada, and so we used to go to this place that was called Carcross, and it would go all the way into like Whitehorse and all this stuff. But we would stop at Carcross, and it was this big place it was a big tourism place, and we'd stop there and have lunch, and they had like a wild animal museum inside there of all these different animals and bears and polar bears, and they even had a woolly mammoth put together in there and stuff. And then they'd have the mush dogs, and you could watch them run, and you could even like pay to get on the sleds and all that stuff. So in between there were all these stops that we'd stop and talk a little bit about the history of Alaska and Canada and actually the Yukon. It was more the Yukon.
So many wild animals there.
So many wild animals.
So much wildlife.
And we try to educate and let people know. I'd always tell the story about like one of the things about bears is that they love the dandelions, and when the dandelions, yes, and when they come up, the dandelions, they come up in about April, May, and June, and they're starting to die off around July. Yeah. So right around between April and July is when you're going to see a lot of bears out there in the dandelions. And here's the thing: like when they're eating the dandelions actually ferment.
They're good for you, though.
They're good. Well,
yeah, must be good for the bears, too.
Dandelion teas are good for your stomach, right? But when the bears are eating them, they ferment in their gut.
Oh, my God.
And so the bears become drunk.
No way.
And docile, yes.
What?
Oh, yeah.
From the dandelions.
From the dandelions. So you'll be out there and they'll be out there eating the dandelions, and seeming like they're like you could just go up and pet them because they don't give a no never mind. Like I pull up my bus, and remember, mind you, I'm driving a 24-seater bus, and we'll pull up real quiet, and there might be other buses. Like we have code because we're on a 2-lane highway, right? That's it. And so if one bus is pulled over, you put on your flashers, and other buses are going to pull over behind you or in front of you or whatever. And the bears could, most of the time, care less, right? Oh, so we would talk about that and talk about, if you ever encounter a bear, the true thing, if it's a bear that's like a black bear or a brown bear, if you come across a bear, you hold still. Right? Mm-hmm. But if they seem to come approach you, you want to get bigger than life. Right. You want to put your hands in the air, you want to yell, you want to get loud or whatever. If it's a grizzly bear, you're screwed. So
black bear, you're okay. But
black bear, brown bear, grizzlies, there's not a lot of advice for that other than maybe lay down and just pretend like you're dead because maybe it'll leave you alone. But they like to chase. Grizzly bears are out to get you.
That's scary.
So anyways, this one time we were coming back and we stopped in one of the stops that I always stop, and I'm explaining about the lake and explaining about the mountains and the territory and stuff. And right across the street is a big mountain, right? Like a big mountain area. And all of a sudden I look up and there's a bear coming down, and we're only across the street. So mind you, we are maybe 50 feet away.
Oh my goodness.
Because the mountain is right up against the road on the other side, and we are just across from the street. And I see the bear, and I turn around, I'm like, everybody back on the bus. And at that time, they turn around, I'm like, there's a bear over there, you need to get on the bus, you can take pictures out of the bus window. And they wouldn't get on the bus.
Oh my gosh.
They're getting up to the street. They got kids. They're like trying to get the street. And I'm like, you guys, you don't realize that bear could get across this street in like 3 seconds.
Oh my God.
That's how fast they can go.
That's got to be.
And they're like and I'm like,
freaky.
Get in the bus, get in the bus, get in the bus. I'm like becoming like this tyrant, like get in the bus. I did get him in the bus. The bear did cross the street, meandered and stuff. But the point is,
you don't know.
You don't
it's
know.
Unpredictable.
And I think that with it being like they're out in the wild, it's like so like not real. Like, is it real? I'm seeing a bear. Let's get a picture. Let's get a picture. Yeah. But we had many, 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 many encounters with bears along the way, and people wanting to get out of the bus. Like we'd pull over, and the bear would be literally walking alongside the bus, and they'd open the window and try to lean out the bus to get pictures. And people are crazy when it comes to wild animals.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
seriously.
and we were talking about our experience with buffalo. I just talked about how, somebody tried to put their child on a buffalo, not thinking, that it is a wild animal. Well, I remember driving through a herd of buffalo on a motorcycle. I mean, I was on the back of a motorcycle, and we were driving through the Black Hills, so South Dakota, Custer State Park. There are a lot of buffalo there. And we just drove through this herd of buffalo. It didn't even dawn. Well, I wasn't driving the motorcycle.
But did the person in front of you, has he done this before? Or?
I don't know. Thinking back, it's like anything could have happened.
Did they even the buffalo look up and go, "Oh, there's a motorcycle"?
Not really. No. I think that at least they're used to a lot of people, but they're still freaking wild animals. They could do anything. And when you make choices to just drive through a herd of buffalo, you don't understand that there are risks. Like, they are wild.
They can turn in a second.
They can do whatever they want.
Well, I think luckily for you, they probably had been around people before. Maybe. But that's not an excuse to go through it. Like,
when I told you the story, you were telling me your story.
Oh, my God. Well, yeah.
Your buffalo story.
Because I have a stupid story. Before I knew about wild animals like as such. So I was training for a marathon. Actually, my friends took me out to a place here in Utah called Antelope Island because we could run the full 26.2 miles out there on the dirt and stuff, which is actually a lot better than to run on than the hard pavement.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I'm running with some seasoned pros. Right? I've never trained for a marathon. I think at that point, the longest I'd ever run was maybe 15 miles, and I was just like, that sucks. I don't want to run that far. But I wanted to do a marathon.
That's far enough for me.
So, yeah, I'll never do it again. But I just wanted to run a marathon. I wanted to try it. And so we went out there to train. And so I'm staying with them for the most part. And we get up and they are starting to break up. And I'm like, go ahead. I know the way back because we're kind of like coming around this big loop. And it's like, oh, yeah, just stay on this road and then it'll just take you back to the parking lot and stuff. So I'm like, okay, cool. So they just go off without me because obviously I'm not their pace.
I'm surprised you weren't at the front of the line.
Oh no, I'm running with people that do
shocked.
100-milers, right? I'm like my best is a 13-miler.
Oh my God.
I can kick ass on a half marathon, but not a whole. So I'm out running, and I come down this hill, and I get into this meadow, and there's all these buffalo, and they're sprinkled all throughout the meadow, and the road goes right in between all of them. And so I'm like running and like super cool because in my mind, which is exactly like I'm sure my guests' mind were on these tours, was like, well, they're out here at Antelope Island. They see people all the time, right? I'm thinking, whatever. So I'm running and literally some of them are like 5 feet away from me.
Oh my God.
Like they're not far away. And I'm just running, looking at the buffalo. And I get through.
How cool is that?
And they, and they don't even pay attention. Once in a while, one will look at me. No big deal. I run through and I get, finally get down to the parking lot. I'm like, man, did you see all those buffalo? And they're like, yeah, we had to go around. I'm like, what do you mean go around? She's like, well, because they were like all over where the trail was. I'm like, I just ran straight through the trail. And they're like, are you kidding me?
Oh my God.
They could have turned in a minute and stampeded and you would have been like trampled.
Toast.
I was like, what?
Well, it's the thing that, we look at other people and say, what are you thinking? This is